Ryan sat alone in his modest apartment, turning the invitation to his high school reunion over in his hands. The sight of it brought back a flood of memories, most of them unpleasant. He could still hear the taunts from his classmates, the cruel laughter that echoed through the halls, and the biting names he had been given: nerd, charity case, and other reminders of his family's humble background. He remembered slipping through the crowd unnoticed, his silence acting as his only shield from the relentless teasing. And the face he recalled most clearly was Jake's, the popular, wealthy star of the class, who had been the ringleader of those taunts. After high school, Ryan had worked tirelessly to escape that world. He had left his hometown with a full-ride scholarship, determined to carve out a life defined by his terms, not theirs. He buried himself in his studies, earning degree after degree, and ultimately launched his own firm. From the ground up, he had built a reputation in finance, gaining respect from clients and peers alike. Yet, despite his success, he had never sought validation from others. He kept a low profile, choosing to stay out of the limelight. He knew that real success came from within, not from the fleeting approval of those who once belittled him. Now, looking at the invitation, he couldn't help but wonder how those classmates had fared. Had they reached the heights they had aimed for, or had life thrown them unexpected challenges? Part of him didn't want to go, fearing old wounds might reopen. But another part of him saw this as an opportunity for closure. After all, he had spent years proving himself, not to them, but to himself. This might be his chance to finally let go of the past entirely. He ran his fingers over the invitation, feeling the weight of the decision. Would he let his memories hold him back, or would he confront his past head-on? Ryan decided to go. This was no longer about them, it was about him. It was about reclaiming the years of his life that had been defined by their laughter, taking the power back from his high school memories. He folded the invitation carefully and placed it on his desk, his mind made up. Little did he know, this reunion would not simply be a chance to face old ghosts. It would be the turning point he had unknowingly waited for, a moment that would bring his journey full circle. His life was about to intertwine with the very people who had once tried to break him, but this time, Ryan would hold the power. As he sat on the plane bound for his hometown, Ryan found himself transported back to the hallways of his high school. He could still see the lockers lined up, the worn-out floors, and the cliques that had seemed so unbreakable. He recalled the whispers, the sneers, and the moments that had left lasting marks on his confidence. He had always tried to stay invisible, ducking his head and avoiding eye contact, but that hadn't been enough to shield him. The most vivid memory was the high school talent show, the one he had prepared for so diligently. His science project had been his pride, a demonstration he hoped would earn him a shred of respect. But just before he went on stage, Jake and his friends had drenched his work with soda, leaving it a ruined mess. Instead of presenting, Ryan had fled the stage in humiliation, the laughter ringing in his ears. He remembered hiding in the library, tears stinging his eyes, vowing to someday rise above them. When he left for college, Ryan knew he was escaping more than just his hometown, he was leaving behind every painful memory tied to it. Determined to succeed, he threw himself into his studies, often working late into the night, driven by a desire to prove, if only to himself, that he could make something of his life. He had no safety net, no family fortune to rely on. What he did have was a full scholarship and a fierce determination to rise above his past. To support himself, Ryan took on multiple part-time jobs. He worked as a library assistant, delivered food, and cleaned dormitory halls. These jobs, though exhausting, filled him with a sense of purpose and control he had never felt before. For once, he wasn't the victim of others' judgments, he was shaping his future, one late night and early morning at a time. After college, Ryan landed his first job at a small but promising investment firm. He climbed the ranks quickly, impressing his superiors with his sharp insights and unrelenting work ethic. For the first time, he felt like he was building a life free from the shadows of his past. The pride of standing on his own, making his own way, filled him with a quiet confidence. However, just 2 years into his career, the financial crisis struck, leaving him suddenly unemployed. The job that had seemed so secure was gone, and his savings dwindled. He moved into a cramped studio apartment, spending months searching for work and barely scraping by. Despite the setback, he refused to let it break him. He knew he had overcome worse. Just when things seemed bleakest, Ryan received a call from a former professor who had always admired his tenacity. The professor offered him a freelance project, encouraging him to think beyond traditional employment and suggesting he start his own consulting firm. The idea was daunting, but his professor's faith in him reignited his own belief in his capabilities. With minimal funding and a mountain of ambition, Ryan took the plunge. His first few clients were small, local businesses, but he poured himself into each project. Over time, his firm's reputation grew, attracting more significant clients. The professor's mentorship became a lifeline, giving Ryan the boost he needed to establish a foothold in the industry. The early days of Ryan's business were filled with sacrifices, late nights, missed weekends, and countless setbacks. He was responsible for every aspect of his company, from client relations to finances to marketing. The journey was grueling, but it brought him closer to his goal with each passing day. Slowly but surely, his firm earned a reputation for excellence and integrity. As his client list expanded, Ryan began taking on larger projects. Major corporations sought his expertise, valuing his strategic mind and unwavering commitment to quality. He was no longer just a man trying to escape his past. He was a respected figure in his field, with a growing company and a team that looked up to him. Despite his success, Ryan found that memories of his high school years lingered. Whenever he encountered a difficult client or a competitive setback, his mind drifted back to those taunting faces, as if they were waiting for him to stumble. He couldn't shake the feeling that, to some degree, he was still proving himself, not to his clients or his team, but to those classmates who had once laughed at his dreams. Occasionally, he crossed paths with people from his high school at industry events. Some of them recognized him, their expressions shifting from surprise to disbelief. Their dismissive glances reminded him that, in their eyes, he was still the outsider, the quiet loser they had once mocked. But he no longer let their opinions define him. Ryan's company reached a new pinnacle when it landed a multi-million-dollar contract with a major corporation. This deal transformed his firm from a respected small business into a true powerhouse, placing him on the industry map in a way he had only dreamed of. His achievements were no longer confined to his office, they were recognized far and wide. As he celebrated this milestone, he found himself wondering about his former classmates, particularly Jake. He wondered if they had achieved the dreams they boasted of in high school or if life had humbled them. The success felt incomplete without closure, a sense of finality to the journey he had begun years ago. When the invitation to his high school reunion arrived, the timing felt almost fated. At the height of his career, Ryan knew this was his chance to face his past head-on. This time, he would not be the quiet, invisible student. He would be Ryan, the man who had built a life of integrity and success, despite every obstacle thrown his way. With a sense of calm determination, he decided to attend. He kept his success discreet, arriving with no intention of boasting or showing off. He was there for himself, to see the people who had once defined his life and to release the hold they had on his heart. The reunion was held at a luxurious venue, a far cry from the modest high school they had all attended. Ryan walked in, dressed in understated attire, blending in with the crowd. He spotted familiar faces, some classmates who had aged gracefully and others who seemed burdened by time. And there, in the center, was Jake, laughing loudly, as confident as he had been in their youth. Ryan kept to the edges, observing from a distance. He had no desire to make a grand entrance or to call attention to himself. He simply wanted to see if time had changed the people who had once haunted his memories. As the night wore on, Ryan overheard snippets of conversations. Some classmates shared stories of their successes, while others spoke of challenges and regrets. Yet, old habits resurfaced. When Jake noticed him, he nudged a friend and muttered, "Still the same quiet loser, I see." The words were faint, but they reached Ryan, sparking a quiet resolve within him. Jake's sneer didn't sting the way it once would have. Instead, it confirmed something Ryan had long suspected: some people never changed, even when life offered them the opportunity to grow. He was ready to face whatever the night held. As the evening drew to a close, the reunion host took the stage to make a special announcement. She revealed that the company where many of Ryan's former classmates, including Jake, worked, had recently been acquired by a new CEO. The crowd murmured in anticipation, and then, to everyone's shock, she announced Ryan's name. He was their new CEO. Ryan stepped forward, his face calm as he walked to the stage. His former classmates stared at him, stunned into silence. He glanced at the crowd, letting his gaze linger on Jake, who looked as though the ground had dropped out from under him. In that moment, Ryan felt a quiet, satisfying victory. Standing on the stage, Ryan felt an overwhelming sense of closure. His success was not for them, it was for him. He didn't need their approval or their admiration. For years, he had defined his worth, not by their judgments but by his resilience, integrity, and dedication. Now, looking out at the faces that had once mocked him, he felt only a sense of peace. This was not about revenge or proving himself. It was about finally laying his past to rest. After the announcement, Ryan stepped down from the stage, where a stunned Jake was waiting, trying to mask his surprise with a forced smile. "Ryan, congratulations. I had no idea you'd come so far." Jake's tone was meant to sound friendly, but the words were laced with a tension that betrayed his true feelings. Ryan maintained a calm expression, keeping the conversation professional. He responded politely, though his words carried an unmistakable edge. "Thank you, Jake. It's been a long journey." Jake faltered, his confident demeanor slipping away. He tried to salvage the interaction, offering half-hearted compliments, but Ryan sensed the insecurity behind each one. The tables had turned, and Jake was no longer the one in control. For the first time, Ryan saw him as he truly was, not the all-powerful figure of his high school memories, but a man who, perhaps, had never left that phase behind. The exchange ended with a handshake, but both men knew that the balance of power had shifted permanently. Ryan's acquisition of the company was more than just a business move, it was a personal mission. Within weeks, he implemented a series of changes aimed at fostering a workplace built on respect and integrity. Arrogance, entitlement, and underhanded competition, qualities he had endured during high school, were no longer tolerated. He made it clear that every employee, from junior staff to executives, would be treated with the same respect and dignity. As the culture shifted, employees responded with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. Those who had felt overlooked or dismissed found a new sense of purpose, while those who had operated on privilege and intimidation faced a reckoning. Ryan knew that change wouldn't happen overnight, but he was committed to creating an environment where no one would feel the way he once had. He was determined to break the cycle. As the weeks went by, Ryan began to reconnect with some of his former classmates who now worked for him. Surprisingly, a few approached him with genuine humility, expressing admiration for his achievements and even apologizing for their past behavior. He saw in them a willingness to change and forgave them, letting go of any lingering resentment. These reconnections blossomed into sincere friendships, a stark contrast to the shallow alliances they had once shared in high school. For others, however, the reunion marked a different chapter. Those who still clung to their old ways found themselves at odds with the new company culture. But rather than enforce his authority with hostility, Ryan used compassion, helping them understand the value of growth and respect. Slowly, they began to see him not as the quiet, underestimated kid but as a leader who truly cared. The day Jake approached Ryan's office, he looked like a shadow of the confident man he once had been. Jake had been struggling with the company's new standards, facing demotions and reprimands for the entitlement that once went unchecked. Standing in the doorway, he hesitated before finally speaking, his voice strained. "Ryan, I know I haven't been fair to you, in high school or now." Ryan looked at him, allowing the moment to settle. He knew how much courage it took for Jake to admit fault. "Thank you for saying that, Jake. We were kids then, but we're adults now. It's not too late to change." Jake nodded, visibly humbled. In that moment, Ryan recognized that beneath the bravado, Jake had been carrying his own insecurities and regrets. What once felt like a rivalry dissolved, replaced by something closer to understanding. Over the next few months, Ryan and Jake developed an unexpected friendship. No longer rivals, they shared experiences of their pasts, finding common ground in their journeys. They had both faced challenges that forced them to confront their own weaknesses, though in very different ways. In a quiet way, they began to support each other, building a trust that neither would have believed possible. Ryan found himself grateful for Jake's companionship. Together, they navigated the demands of running the company, learning from one another's strengths. They joked about the ironies of life, how fate had led them to this point, and how they had both grown into different men than the boys they once were. For the first time, Ryan felt like he had gained a true friend. One evening, Ryan sat alone in his office, reflecting on the years that had led him here. He thought of the challenges he had faced, the sleepless nights, the setbacks, and the doubts that had once consumed him. Every struggle had been a step forward, every failure a lesson. Looking back, he realized that his resilience had been his greatest asset, something no amount of wealth or status could match. It was not revenge or validation that had driven him all these years. It was the quiet, steady conviction that he could rise above his past, that he could shape his life on his own terms. He felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that he had succeeded not because of anyone else's approval, but because he had believed in himself. In that moment, he knew he had finally moved beyond the past. The following day, Ryan decided to let go of a memento he had carried with him for years, a photograph of the science project he'd once been so proud of, ruined by Jake's cruel prank. He realized that he no longer needed the reminder of that day. The pain and resentment had served their purpose, they had fueled his journey, but now it was time to move forward. He placed the photograph in his desk drawer, a symbolic gesture that marked the end of a chapter. For the first time, he felt truly free. There was no longer any bitterness in his heart, only a quiet gratitude for the path that had brought him here. His life was now defined by his achievements, his friendships, and his integrity, not by the taunts of a long-ago past. During another reunion event, Ryan reconnected with one of his former teachers, Mrs. Hill. She was now retired, but she remembered him well and shared a story that left him deeply moved. She told him how she had always admired his quiet resilience, even when others couldn't see his worth. "You may not know this, Ryan, but your kindness inspired more people than you realize," she said with a warm smile. Her words struck a chord. Ryan had never thought of himself as a hero or an inspiration, but hearing those words reminded him that even small acts of kindness could leave a lasting impact. The conversation filled him with a renewed sense of purpose, and he resolved to live by that lesson every day, leading with compassion and understanding. Back at his office, Ryan gathered his team for a meeting, outlining his vision for the company. He spoke of the importance of respect, humility, and integrity, values he had come to cherish through his own journey. "This is not just a business," he told them. "It's a place where we all grow, where we treat each other with respect, and where we build each other up." His team listened with admiration, inspired by his vision. Ryan knew that his leadership would leave a legacy beyond the financial success of the company. It would shape the lives of the people around him, just as he had once been shaped by the trials he had faced. His journey had come full circle, and now he could help others find their own paths. In a quiet moment, Ryan realized that his true success lay not in his wealth or his position, but in the people he had touched and the respect he had earned. He thought of his employees, his friends, and even Jake, all of whom had become a part of his journey. He had built a life that was meaningful, one that brought light and hope to others. Looking out the window of his office, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He knew that he would continue to face challenges, but he also knew that he had the strength to overcome them. True success, he realized, was not about external validation. It was about living with integrity and kindness, about lifting others up and leaving a positive mark on the world. Over time, Ryan's story inspired change beyond his immediate circle. His former classmates, even those he had barely known, began reaching out to him, sharing how his journey had encouraged them to pursue their own dreams. Many of them had encountered struggles and setbacks, and they found hope in Ryan's story, a reminder that resilience could carry them through their darkest moments. He watched with pride as they made changes in their own lives, choosing to prioritize kindness, integrity, and growth. His journey had become a ripple that spread beyond himself, touching lives in ways he had never imagined. The impact of his resilience reached far and wide, leaving a legacy that extended beyond the walls of his company. One day, Ryan received an unexpected email from Jake, who was now a mentor to younger employees at the company. Jake thanked Ryan for his guidance and shared how he had started helping others avoid the mistakes he had made. He had learned the value of humility, of treating others with respect, and he wanted to pass those lessons on. For Ryan, this message was a testament to the power of change. If someone like Jake could transform, then there was hope for everyone. He responded with encouragement, grateful for the friendship they had built. Together, they had found a way to move beyond their past, creating a future rooted in respect and growth. Ryan found himself reconnecting with classmates he had once barely noticed. In the context of the company's culture, they saw each other as people, not stereotypes or social ranks. They forged genuine friendships, supporting one another and celebrating each other's achievements. These bonds brought Ryan a new sense of belonging, filling a void he hadn't realized was there. The new friendships taught him that life was not defined by labels, but by the connections people chose to build. With each new friendship, he felt his journey was reaching new depths, and he cherished the relationships that had blossomed from the ashes of old hurts. As the night of the reunion came to an end, Ryan felt a deep sense of contentment. He had faced his past, forgiven old wounds, and rebuilt connections in ways he hadn't anticipated. He no longer needed the approval of those who had once laughed at him, nor did he need to prove anything to himself. He had arrived at a place of peace, shaped by his journey and grounded in his values. He left the venue that night feeling lighter, free from the weight of his memories. His heart was full, his mind clear, and his purpose set. His past no longer defined him, it had simply been the path that led him to his true self. Returning to his office, Ryan reflected on the legacy he wanted to leave. He envisioned a workplace where every person felt valued, a company where success was measured by the positive impact they had on others. He began sharing his story with his team, teaching them the importance of resilience, integrity, and kindness. Over time, his story became a guiding force for the company. Employees worked not just for financial gain, but to contribute to a legacy of growth and respect. Ryan had created something lasting, a place where people thrived, not just professionally, but personally. Years later, Ryan shared the story of his journey with his own children. He told them about his reunion, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. "Life won't always be easy," he said, "but if you stay true to who you are, you'll find a way through." His children listened with wide eyes, absorbing the wisdom he had gained. Ryan knew that his story would live on through them, guiding them in their own journeys. They would carry forward his values, building lives defined not by the judgments of others, but by the strength within themselves. Many years later, Ryan received letters from classmates he had not seen in decades. Some shared stories of fulfillment and purpose, while others expressed gratitude for the inspiration he had provided. Reading their letters, he knew that his resilience had created something far greater than personal success. It had sparked hope, a legacy that had touched lives beyond his own. Sitting in his quiet office, Ryan looked back on his journey with pride. He had come full circle, transforming pain into purpose, and in doing so, he had left a lasting mark. His life, once defined by the taunts of others, had become a testament to the power of resilience, kindness, and redemption.